Coming up on today's wrestling news, a controversial finish to the last night's WWE pay-per-view.
AWOL, controversial AEW star, shows up on the independent circuit.
Samantha Irvin didn't like being a WWE ring announcer.
And there's a really not cool spate of injuries that have just happened at the TNA tapings.
Yeah, I'm Michael Hamfoot.
I'm Michael Sidgwick.
And this is the news, and we start, Sidge, with the most newsworthy show, I guess, in wrestling currently, which is last night's NXT Halloween Havoc. It's just sort of finished as we're recording this, so spoilers, I guess, if you haven't seen this yet, but what are you on the wrestling internet for? It concluded with Trick Williams' presumably last match with Ethan Page for the NXT World Heavyweight title. Trick was successful, but then he found himself victim to a 2-on-1 attack from Ethan Page and Ridge Holland. Now, earlier in the night, Ridge Holland had a couple of feisty exchanges with Bully Ray, represented Busted Open. They were doing some like the pre and the mid-show coverage for NXT, mid being the operative word there. And Bully Ray suddenly hit the ring to help Trick Williams fend off the villains, send them packing, all that sort of stuff. Bully Ray. And joining, potentially, we assume, Dawn Marie in the ECW Arena show as a guest referee. This feels like we might be getting a little taxi with the old returning of the bully ski.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, incidentally, NXT and WWE love their special guest ref stuff this year.
Yes.
It's absolutely out of control. Yeah, this is controversial. Actually, you know what? Maybe it wasn't controversial, because controversial as a word means that it's something pretty, notable happens that very much divides public opinion. Maybe this is just the way that my timeline is configured, but everyone hated it. So maybe it wasn't actually controversial. I will say that, look, this is the obvious thing. It's for Bully Ray to appear in some capacity at the ECW Arena on that quite important show coming up for NXT. And look, I'm going to defend WWE, even though the optics of having, Bully Ray be the sort of last man standing for developmentally, he's like, what, 60?
Yeah.
It's like for like the up and comers, isn't it? Maybe like
He was also a guest referee this year at WrestleMania.
Indeed, yes, indeed. Like maybe Javon Evans could have done it.
Yeah.
Or, someone like that, someone who's like 22 and actually fits the profile of developmental. He might even be younger than that. In fact, he's 20, isn't he?
He is. I think
he can't drink yet, I know. That's how I remember.
Yeah.
In any event, it was Bully Ray, however old he is. Look, at the end of the day, though, in WWE's defence, it was called Halloween Havoc. It's not called Pleasant Man Interferes. You know what I mean? Like, you're meant to,
It's supposed to be chaos.
You're meant to see a monster. And, so if you tuned in to Halloween Havoc, not expecting a monster, well, maybe you were watching the wrong show. Maybe they won't do a special guest referee thing. He could still work in a manner of speaking.
Yeah.
Technically, he had that match against Jinder Mahal, and you know what? You can't say that he didn't work a match.
I mean, I'm sure there's going to be heat now for that match at the ECW Arena, and the man loves that. But yeah, nostalgia pops, isn't it? Like, I think we're already given the indication of where that...
If it was like mid-show, it would be fine. It's just the optics of it happening last, and especially when, it's the guy who's...
Against Ridge Holland, who is presumably now going to be the new number one contender.
And he's nearly 40.
He's been sent... so I say he feels like his daughter more than a sex object.
Yes.
Like, he's been sent packing by Bully Ray. Like, optically, you are sending your developmental top heels packing.
Yeah, but he's Ridge Holland's also... It just wasn't a good night optically for the idea that this was meant to be the future. Not at all. Second story, this one really quite shocked me. AWOL, I guess, is the way to put it. On hiatus, it's all very, very murky. AEW star Ricky Starks turned up at an independent show, Glory Pro Wrestling. That could have went horribly wrong. Setting up a match after a run-in with Cody Lane. That's scheduled to take place on, let me check my notes. I've not written it down, but I think it's scheduled for later this month. Now, this is of particular interest because it's one of those, no one knows what's going on, but maybe everyone can connect the dots.
Yeah.
Ricky Starks has said and insisted for a long time, I'm healthy, I'm good to go, I would like to do something, I'm healthy, I'm good to go. Beats me. That was the general, I'm putting words in his mouth and he's much better at that than I am, but that is the, that's what I'm looking for here. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
I am indeed paraphrasing. That was the general gist, and he's proved it by doing some physical run-ins. And not that, needed to prove anything, but someone's lying. Well, someone is clearly. We'll get to
What's
that.
going on? Because Tony Khan on he said he's very much like he's great.
Well, that's the thing, because he's clear to compete. Presumably, he's going to wrestle for Glory Pro later this month. Or, conversely, in the meantime, when probed about the status of Ricky Starks, I can't recall the actual post-show press scrum, if it was indeed that or a media call, which Tony Khan holds before the actual pay-per-views or the Dynamite specials. When probed earlier this year, he said, Ricky's great. I mean, everyone's great. But, he did say Ricky's included in the great, which is everything. He said, Ricky's great. I'd love to have him on the show sometime. It's your show. It's your show, and he's good to go and he's fit. Hamflet, why don't you take this one on?
Yeah, I mean, he looked great in the running as well.
He always
physically.
does.
He looked amazing. He also
was a piece.
He was already the talk of the online space this weekend, and he would have known that this indie date was going to get shared. And obviously, posting a picture at the Nightmare Factory training with Jade Cargill. Both trainees at the Nightmare Factory. There's no sort of. They've not hidden away from the fact that obviously he's good mates with Cody, and the two of them both come up in that system, if you want to call it that. But that was already doing the rounds, as any WWE x AW interaction does. So that felt like, it's a Ricky Starks weekend. That's interesting that those two things have kind of landed online at the same time. So
I missed that completely.
I guess like the speculation.
He's too busy hanging out with my cat.
Oh, well, I mean, that sounds like a nicer time.
Better than Twitter.
Sounds like a nice time than Doom scrolling on Twitter.
Better than Twitter.
Maybe Samantha Irvin would have had a nicer weekend, just hanging out with her pets rather than having to deal with a lot of feedback on Twitter. She
seems to be enjoying it.
Yeah, to be absolutely fair to her, has answered so many replies and has gone on repeatedly to say that she's has no problem kind of handling the trolls and stuff like that. This all stems, first of all, I guess, from this time last week when she handed a notice to WWE with immediate effect. It's kind of, there was a shockwave around wrestling, I would say, about that. Somebody that's become a very popular figure in this boom period for WWE. And then over the weekend, she initially replied to some comments on Instagram, just saying that she didn't like ring announcing. It was the most forthright she'd been since leaving, and leaving a very nice sort of message to everybody that she'd worked with in WWE. This got picked up by Twitter, which I think is what moved her to move the conversation over to there. And then since then, it's been kind of or not all out war, because in some cases a lot of people have been very nice to Samantha Irvin, but there's been a number of times when she's had to comment back to people, and she's been quite diplomatic in the face of some ridiculous abuse. There's a few tweets that kind of sum it up, but if you go to Samantha Irvin's Twitter, at Samantha the Bomb, and just go to the replies, you will see she has spent hours and hours and hours and hours, in some cases in conversation, in some points just straight up fights with people. There was one notable tweet where she says, I didn't say I hated doing it, I said I don't like announcing, meaning if I continue to do WWE, I would like to not be the announcer and learn to do something else. I loved every effing moment I was there, but the fact that some people are upset I don't want to announce shows me what they really thought. There was, again, more comments. She then just simply quoted with, I love WWE. A bunch of people got and said, well, obviously you couldn't have done if you did all this. So then she was again moved to reply, I love...
Die in the chair, you should die in the chair.
Basically.
That's just the comment section.
She's got a great example here. I love playing a role in WWE. Just like Big Boss Man, I played the announcer, he played a cop. I think that's a reasonable way to It was fun and amazing, but now people think I'm qualified to announce UFC, and my background of music and performing is actually what drove the ring announcing I love to perform. There's another, again, tries to clarify, the people that were going sort of insane with her online, they're going mad because they thought my love for wrestling and performing was a love for announcing. And then there's one last reply, I guess, to sort of, again, double down on the idea that AEW is perhaps not the destination for her. She said, if I'm not at WWE, I'm not in the wrestling business. So in her mind, if she's going to go back to that job of being a ring announcer, it would be with WWE. I think that's the crux of all this. She is trying to explain to a bunch of people that right now don't want to listen to reason that the announcer role was a performance, and she wanted to do a different kind of performance, couldn't, and wants to take her business and voice and life elsewhere.
I mean, I just cannot believe this is a story. And yes, we are, culpable for perpetuating this sign.
We're your favourite grubby aggregators, so it's okay.
Yeah, we are culpable of perpetuating this complete nonsense, this toxic nonsense. The mere fact that this sort of conversation and discourse and story exists, in my opinion, just actually detracts from the real serious stories that go on elsewhere. So I can only hold up my hand, but there is an interest in this. It's all people talked about. I just kind of believe it. Someone left a job. I mean, it's sad because she was very well received in the role by WWE fans. She just didn't particularly have the most passion for it, and the amount of times people in their professional career feel somewhat unfulfilled and decide to go elsewhere. I mean, it's the most normal thing in the world. Not for me, I like it.
We're staying right here, baby.
I don't... I reckon I'd stay here forever if I could.
Yeah.
But other people don't.
And
other
that's
people
okay.
like to move, and that's okay. Other people feel unfulfilled. It's the most normal thing in the world. I just cannot believe the abuse and the harassment to which this woman has been subjected. It's just grossly unfair.
She's taking it amazingly well. She's
taking it
bantering some of these
amazingly well.
losers off.
She is. I would, not that she's ever going to listen to me, but I used to have fun doing this as well. You know what my least favourite genre of like take / tweet / post / comment is?
Go on.
Bemoaning the state, and I know I've just spent 2 minutes doing it. Bemoaning the state
Same.
of everything.
Yeah.
Don't bemoan the state of everything. Completely ignore those conversations. Start your own. I find there's so much other stuff to get worried about. I used to be bad, so maybe I'm on a high horse here and I shouldn't. And I used to get quite wound up by how unfair certain critics were, or whatever. And I just realised I've got a preference. I'm going to stay within range of that preference in terms of the wrestling that I like. Have conversations, good or bad, but don't even consider saying like, well, this is not as bad as that. Kind of used to. I don't understand how people can be bothered anymore. There's a lot more serious things going on, which acts as a really unfortunate segue to our fourth story. TNA have recently just wrapped up their Bound for Glory pay-per-view. Again, another controversial finish on that one as well. As per their schedule, they have subsequently taped some episodes of Impact, and yeah, 2 really serious sounding injuries transpired on that show. One, Vikingo, in a match against Trent Seven, came up clutching his leg after a corkscrew attempt of some kind. He was stretchered off, and he was joined on the stretcher, not the same one, obviously, that's a horrible way to put it, by Chris Bay, who seemed to, he had a neck brace put on him as well after what seemed like a nasty head-first collision with Matt Hardy. So obviously everyone here at WhatCulture wishes both performers the very best in their recovery. These things just seem to happen, like, when something bad happens for a promotion, it just seems to be catching. I don't know what it is.
No, it's, I suppose, like, not the worst thing is obviously the injuries, but one of the worst things at the moment is kind of as we're sharing this now, like, all we're getting at the moment is sort of shared news from people who are either in the building. Yeah. We'll, like, obviously keep fingers crossed for, like, official news coming out, as this is obviously relatively breaking from last night. So we'll see today if there's any sort of updates from the wrestlers themselves or from TNA or anything like that. We're long past the point now where they would be worried about, like, spoiling the shows, because they'll know that people want a health update. So fingers crossed, as this week goes on, we'll have better news on that. I got to meet Chris Bay once, like one of the nicest people you could ever hope to meet, like super invested, not just in wrestling, but like in his music and all that sort of stuff as well. He's still so young, there's like a lot of career to go, and you just hear about people being stretched off and like not moving in neck braces. It's like, you've seen scary stuff. Wrestling is scary by its nature into what can happen and stuff like that. So we just keep our fingers crossed from all of us at WhatCulture. That's about it for today, but if you want to kind of keep watching, there'll be some sort of video about right here. And until next time, we will see you soon.